Hello and welcome to the Retail Journey Podcast. Today, we are talking about excitement and growth with the one and only Twilla Brooks. Thank you for joining us today, Twilla. Excited about it. My name is Charles Greathouse. I get to be one of your hosts, and to my left, our better host, James Harris.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for joining us, Twilla. Twilla is the founder of Lynette Create and Innovate, and she is also the corporate liaison for the Bentonville Film Festival. Twilla started her career in buying, initially at Macy's until joining Walmart in 2009, and served there as the VP DMM of both men's apparel and bed and bath. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Let's start with retail. What drew you into retail, particularly Macy's or whatever came before that?
Well, I actually started in retail right out of college. It's a funny story. I thought I would be a corporate lawyer, and I ran into a friend of mine that was a executive trainee, and I thought he was in law school, and he said nope. I decided to work for a company called Robinson's May. It was a division of May Company, and then was eventually bought out by Macy's.
Awesome.
And so that's how, literally right out of college.
Yeah. This is before you found a job. You're about to go to...
No, it wasn't even that. I was actually studying in like our Universal Center, and I got up to go get a cup of coffee, and literally I ran into him.
Yeah, how's law school?
That's amazing.
Nope.
Yeah,
No
I was
dice.
like, how's law school? I was like, I just got into USC, and I assumed that that's where he was, and he was like, nope. And he was like, you got to come and, check out the recruiter. And that was before people called it a gap year.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It would be like, I would defer for a year.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. And I never looked back.
Awesome.
It was hard, but I loved it.
So what did retail in those early days look like? What did buying or whatever role you were in look like?
Back then it was a lot of teaching, training, a lot of about building relationship with mentors. And I had my mentor, who at the time was a senior buyer. She's from UC Santa Barbara, which is where I went. And she had mentored 14 previous executive trainees from Santa Barbara. And so she kind of took me under her wing. I started out in costume jewelry, and she taught me everything. We were in class for the first 12 weeks for most of the time, but we would go there in the beginning, and I just realized if I could be as good as her, or if half as good as she was, then this is where I was supposed to be. And I never looked back. Like I never second guessed myself.
The mentoring idea, it's almost moving, because so often the people that invest in you end up really meeting your potential somewhere else.
Right.
It's just an investment in the person.
And the thing that was weird is every single job and every company that I went to, it was because there was a mentor. It was someone who said to me, I think this is where you should go next. And so when Robinson's May got bought out by Macy's, it was because I had a mentor who was my divisional merchandise manager who was like, I think you should go here. And then I had no idea, being this young kid from Southern California, what Walmart was.
Yeah.
And it was a GMM that reached out to me and said, I know they want you to move to New York to work for Macy's, but I know where you should go next. You should go work for Walmart. And I was like, well, what is Walmart?
Yeah.
And so, and I said no like 4 times. But I mean, thank God I did, because Walmart helped shape my career and my life.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah, there's a lot of folks that are being told that they're going to come to Bentonville at some point. Where's Bentonville? How long do I have to stay? And they're still here.
Man, they're still here. There's a lot of us. I mean, they asked me 4 times when we were in New York to come down, because all you see is Arkansas. There's this little place called Bentonville, Arkansas, who's not so little anymore, that it's a little bit of a gem, and it's very hard to explain to people. And that's why people stay here. But they stay here not necessarily because of Bentonville, they stay here because of the people. And that's kind of how my career, shaped out. It's always been about the people.
Yeah. And so speaking of people, for Twilla,
Okay.
where are you from? Tell us a little bit about yourself pre getting into retail.
Pre-retail. Okay. So I was a young kid. I grew up in Southern California, in Los Angeles. I played softball, and I literally woke up, trained, went to class, trained, and that's what I thought I was going to do. I thought
So when you say play softball, like I'm serious.
yeah, I played softball all throughout high school. I played for college. I played semi-pro.
Awesome.
I thought I was going to go to the Olympics. I thought I was
How
going to be
awesome.
like the next great, Lisa Fernandez. And then I realized they didn't really pay softball players that much money.
Great hobby. Great sport.
Are you in a league now?
Well, I was in a league right before COVID, but then when COVID happened, I took up golf. And so now I play golf.
Yeah.
And that's been kind of a passion. So when I'm not working, I try to go and hit some balls and help center but I'm not as stressed as I used to be, but
Yeah.
I used to hit a lot of balls.
Yeah. Well, I mean, any of the baseball or softball players that I know that swing a club can smoke the ball.
Well, yeah, I could smoke the ball. Sometimes I may not know where it's going,
Yeah. Right.
but I'm gonna hit the heck out of it.
Yeah.
Power's not the problem.
Yeah.
So, what is Lynette Create and Innovate?
So when I decided probably a year into COVID, I reached out to Walmart and my mentors, and I talked to Doug, who was the CEO. I had a pretty good relationship with him, and I said, you know what, I think it's time for me to do something different. And I've been thinking about it for a while, and I said I wanted to create a company where I could lend myself differently. And he was like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I want to figure out a way to bring diverse voices to Northwest Arkansas. And so I kind of want to take a little bit of what I learned at Walmart, also being the chair of the African American Officer Caucus. And I want people to understand why Northwest Arkansas is welcoming to people like me. Right? Because on the outside, it doesn't look as diverse. But as you dig into everything that we have access to, whether it's the talent, the programming, the businesses, the food, the music. So that's kind of how I started it. So I started as a creative consulting, but also to lending myself to small businesses that probably need a little bit of help. Not necessarily to get into Walmart, but to help kind of start.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it started.
That's awesome to hear your perspective on the area. I'm a local,
Right.
So grew up in Siloam Springs, and there wasn't always an inclusive nature, but the area has grown and changed, and I'm sure there's still lots of room for improvement. But
Still a lot of work to do, but we're starting.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. I'm from St. Louis. Grew up in a melting pot.
Right.
Really. And came here and, well, it's a lot of the same people.
Right.
And the change over the last 16 years has been incredible.
Yeah, every year, you come back, I go back to LA and I come back and I'm like, there's another building going up, or there's another company, or they're in the works of another restaurant. And so a lot of times when people come, they don't know what to look for.
Yeah. One of my favorite ways of kind of listening for diversity is actually listening to conversations and seeing if it's all English or if you're hearing other languages.
Right.
And went to New York for a work trip, was delighted to remember and see all the different languages. Came back home, was walking around, I think near Crystal Bridges, Compton Gardens, and heard 3 different languages walking by. I was like, all right, let's go, Northwest Arkansas.
And it was interesting because I was at Walmart last week for the Belonging Summit. And it was the first time that I had been in the home office auditorium for a while.
Yeah.
And I noticed that the screens were different. And they were a little bit smaller, but underneath the screens, for every single word that someone said, it was written up there.
Nice.
So just in case, someone necessarily English is not their first language, or they can't necessarily understand what you're saying. And then every single program where even in the auditorium now, it didn't necessarily matter. Someone was doing sign language. Where before it was like just a lot of the bigger programs or occasionally.
Yeah.
So I think the world is evolving and changing and just trying to be as open as possible.
Yeah. And what's it like to be able to be in a seat where you're helping to drive some of that change?
Well, it was weird. I posted on Facebook. It was, part of my job was bringing the talent. And so I flew with them from LA. And it was weird because they were like, wait, where do you live? And I was like, well, it's a long story, but I live in LA, but I also live here. And it's my job to make sure that you guys are welcome when you get to Northwest Arkansas. And so then we get to Walmart and everyone's like, oh, hey. But then now I have this access. So I was on executive row. I was talking to, I was there in a different capacity.
Yeah.
It was a weird situation because then the Walmart people were like, well, what do you do? Why are you here? And then the talent was like, now, who is she? What does she do?
Yeah.
And so it's a great opportunity of being able to bring both of my loves together.
Yeah.
But at the end of it all, it was bringing people together, which is what I wanted to do. I just didn't necessarily know how to do it, and now it's starting to come together.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. If we rewind back to the retail journey for you from Macy's, the journey to Walmart, can you tell us a little bit more about?
Yeah, I like to tell people I lost my job 3 times, but I've never not been without a job.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So
yeah.
either through a corporate restructure, an elimination, a move. So Macy's had decided at the time there were all these regional offices. And so I was in the San Francisco office and they had a New York office, a Florida office. I think based off of the economy, they decided to basically eliminate all of their regional offices. And so they were going from 8 to 1.
Yep.
And so they brought us all in and they said, hey, we're closing this office effective May 1st. You have 6 months to kind of figure it out. And so I was one of the lucky 7 of the 300 people that got offered a job in New York. Wow. But I had a mentor of mine say to me, I know you want to go and work for Macy's in New York, but I got to tell you, there's an opportunity at Walmart. They're moving their fashion office to New York, and you have a unique opportunity that they don't have. And so at the time, I was kind of like what I'm doing now in a weird way. I was, so my role was, I was in charge of all the better sportswear. So I had Tommy Hilfiger and Ralph Lauren and Isaac Mizrahi and Oscar de la Renta. And I was kind of like their Girl Friday in a weird way. So I had to make sure that they were happy. And so when Walmart moved to New York and they took over the fashion, they were launching brands like Miley Cyrus, Starter, Danskin, Ocean Pacific. And the caveat was Neil Cole, who is Kenneth Cole's brother. And he owned this company called Iconics. And Iconics also launched Isaac Mizrahi for Liz Claiborne, Oscar de la Renta, and Tommy Hilfiger. And so they were like, yeah, there's this young girl, who's like 29, and she works with all of them. And Walmart was like, do you think she would want to work from us? And that's how it started. So I moved to New York, and I launched Starter and Danskin for Walmart.
Yeah.
And I got to work with him because he was incredibly difficult to work with.
Yeah.
So I just kind of moved from one company to the next. And so that's how, because literally my interview process was 8 hours.
I love it.
At the most.
Wow.
Yeah. So from the beginning, driving excitement was a part of your Walmart persona, basically. Right. Let's bring and launch brands.
Well, launching brands. And so this whole adaptability, the ability to deal with different types of people, and to be okay with being able to think outside the box and be uneasy. So somehow being able to find comfort and newness and excitement, and not necessarily knowing what your path is going to be.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, anytime you're launching a major initiative at a major company, there's the plan, and then there's the reality of what it takes to get there. We've said before, the retail journey is a non-linear journey.
Right.
It's not just a simple A to B. There's a lot of things that end up changing.
Yeah. Well, I associate it with also being, when you're a Division I athlete and you play on a team, you have to be able to be a team player, but you also need to know when to step out and when it's your turn. And so I kind of associate it with, there's this discipline, right? But you have to be able to be open to do something different. And then when it's your turn, it's time to step up.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I've been able to kind of glide through. And that's, I think, the way I've been able to also navigate my life inside and outside as I go on this journey of newness right now.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Lots of new things.
No pun intended there.
No pun intended. Yeah, exactly. That's good.
Exactly.
So there's a really cool project that you're involved with Dave and Jenny Mars from HGTV, Fixer to Fabulous, the TV show. You're not with the TV show, but you're working with them on developing what?
So it's kind of what Charles talked a little bit about. The reason why I started working with them is because of developing brands. And so we had a prior relationship, and when they knew that I was retiring or leaving Walmart, they actually had been approached by Walmart to develop a brand with Walmart. And so they have a line in collaboration with Better Homes and Gardens called the Dave and Jenny Mars Collection. But they had no idea about product development, about brand.
Yeah.
And so when I came on, literally it was just me, Jenny, and Dave. And I was doing all of helping them with the product placement, the packaging. We were trying to figure out social media, trying to figure out marketing. And we kind of just created it from the ground up. And then from there, it goes back to, and I hope that's the thread that goes throughout the conversation, is we had such a great relationship and we trusted, but we were also open to whatever the newness was and that we were going to be challenged.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, that's where creativity comes from.
and that's
right?
for creativity. So then that moved into strategic partnerships, brand influencer deals, helping to manage them. She has a new book coming out, so I lead that. And so kind of just jumping in wherever I'm needed, and then going from there.
Yeah. There's a lot of folks, both on the merchant and the supplier side, that are trying to build brands or to develop brands really effectively. I'd love to hear, what's the short list of, all right, what do you focus on, and how do you draw your attention in the right direction so that you can launch a brand well?
Well, I think the reason why I've been able, I don't know if they've all been successful, but I've launched a lot of brands. And I always start with, what do people want?
Yeah.
I think we forget that the customer is the most important person.
Always, huh?
And always. And I think that that's why I've been able to be so successful at Walmart, is even though I didn't necessarily come from Walmart, I knew that in order to be successful in a brand, if you're not taking the customer into consideration,
Yep.
then you've already lost.
Oh, totally.
And so
You don't have a brand.
you
at
don't
that
have a
point.
brand.
Yeah.
And every single brand that I've launched, it's always figuring out, where did we go wrong before? Being accepting of the feedback. A lot of time you don't want to hear the feedback.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But what are you going to do about it? You got to get over that part. A lot of analyticals from the data guys, so
Go data.
analyzing everything.
Yeah.
And then what we do is we kind of create an experiment where we ask the same questions to the same suppliers. And if you get some of the same results, you know what path you should go, and you know what you should eliminate. And so that's really kind of how we started. So I kind of started with Jenny and Dave in mind, giving them a reality check of who the customer is, but also never losing sight of why you did what you did. And I think if you can be authentic about it, you have the right quality, a great price, and you're taking that customer, and then you just try. But then when something doesn't work, I still, one of the people that's up there, there's quite a few people that I consider to be people that I'll never forget, that will always be in the back of my mind, would be Andy Barron, who retired as an executive vice president, but also Greg Foran, who was, the president of Walmart US.
Yep.
And he used to really be like, push you into doing something new. But then he would tell you, if it didn't work, I need you to fail fast. And then I need you to move on. And so as long as you're always being okay with the fact that you're not going to be right, and that you don't know it all, then you're going to be okay.
Right.
And so my favorite thing that I say to my team all the time, I'd be like, who did that? And then I'd be like, was that my suggestion? And they'll be like, yeah. I was like, I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Well, and the light bulb is having that permission to fail or fail fast.
Yeah.
Allows you to stay in that gray area until creativity sparks that gives you the thing you're looking for in the first place.
And I think that's what gets in people's way, is because there's this fear out there that you can't show your weakness, right? That you can't be who you are, and that it's okay that you don't know. And so I think that that's a big part of it. And then just the other part of me is being prepared, right? If I say I'm going to be somewhere, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And if I can't do it because for some reason, then it's my job to communicate that. And I think that that's why I've been able to have so many great relationships, is because everyone says, all right, whatever she is, that's who she is. Whatever she says she's going to do, she's going to do it.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't know how to do it, she'll tell you.
I'm seeing the thread of how openness, both in relationships and in business, is the key to being able to be creative. If you're focused on the right things, if you're authentic,
Right.
on relationship, authentic in brand, you're focused on the customer, you're focused on the human, growth occurs.
Right.
Yeah.
So, another thing that kind of stands out, to be able to live in that discomfort for a period of time until you land somewhere, you've got to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And so valuing what you bring, valuing the thing that you're bringing, how do you approach that? Bring us into Twila's mind.
Well, I mean, I'll start by saying is that it's not always easy.
Yeah.
Right. Because you can be your biggest critic. Right. Not to mention the fact that you have the whole world that's possibly saying that, hey, she doesn't know what she's doing. Right. So someone's always going to have an opinion. But if you are your biggest critic and you're not fighting for yourself, then you've already failed. Right. And so for me, as I go into each moment, it's more of what is it that I need to do? And if it's something that's not sitting right with me and it's just not for me, and then I say it's just not for me. And that was the hardest part, where I live in a world right now. If I decide that it's taking up too much of my time, then I say I can't do it.
Yeah.
If it's something that I don't think align with my core values, then I tell you it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Where before, I think when you work for a corporate environment, sometimes you can't necessarily say that.
Yeah. Or you feel like you can't. And the courage is the
courage is
the
being
thing,
able to do
and
it.
you can see people who have the courage to stand and be themselves and be true to that.
Right. And I think that, and I've always said this, and I said the day that it doesn't align with my core values and I feel like I can't be who I am, then that's when it's time for me to go.
Yeah.
And so when I knew it, I communicated it.
Yeah. I love that.
And so,
And that, creating openness and encouraging people to be true feels like a segue to the Bentonville Film Festival.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what it's about and what you're doing with the Bentonville Film Festival?
So the film festival came about in a very interesting way. So I was always kind of a part of it as being a part of the entertainment council for Walmart, but more like I would be a moderator or I would introduce a film. And then right when I left, they reached out to me because they wanted Dave and Jenny to do kind of like a fireside chat for the Bentonville Film Festival. And so we did that. And then the president reached out to me probably 6 months prior before I started working with him. And they said, you know what, we've all been talking and we want you to come and work for us. And I said, well, I appreciate that, but there's a lot of people offering me jobs and I actually don't really need a job. You know what I mean? I said, but I'll do whatever I can to help, but I just can't really be involved. And so I decided probably about March of last year that I started just sitting in on the calls, trying to understand the film business or the media business. If anybody knows, like no one really understands.
Well, you're from Los Angeles, so you must inherently.
I'm from Los Angeles.
Osmosis.
What I know about it, some of it you don't want to know about it, right? You know what I mean? And so I was like, how can I be authentic? How can I be open? So I kind of do everything that I do, like building a brand. I go into a creative mode where I start learning about it. And so I was sitting on a lot of calls. I was being introduced to like the Sundance Film Festival, to Gina Davis's foundation, trying to understand what people did to try to figure out what my value would be.
Yeah.
And then I realized that my goal was to help them kind of connect the thread strategically. But I love what they stood for, right? And so it's about women and people of color, bringing diverse voices, helping to, expand Bentonville with a partnership of Walmart and Coca-Cola. And I was like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
But my first priority obviously is to Dave and Jenny and to my own company. So I knew that I had to kind of like skip and take my time. So I started with just doing the communications and community liaison, helping them navigate Walmart. Did a few, there was a huge 2 films that were from local talent. So Mackenzie Marks, who obviously she works at Walmart, she is the granddaughter of David Glass, and she had directed a film, The Story of Mr. Glass. Cool. And then R.J. Hanna, he did a movie called Hard Miles. He went to Bentonville High School. And so I was like, well, maybe this is why I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to take local voices that are living in Los Angeles or have their own film and figure out a way to regionally get exposure out there. And that ended up going over very nicely. And they're like, you need to do more of that, but we also want you to do films from New York and from LA.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm willing to do that, but I want to make sure that we're highlighting the people of Northwest Arkansas who are doing good things. You can't highlight everyone, but you can highlight the ones that are doing good things.
Yeah.
And so I used my resources, my partners, and, I helped them strategically start to come up with a plan.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And then they asked me to, be their chief operating officer. And I was like, they keep trying to give me jobs. And I was like, I can't. I said, my priority is Dave and Jenny, but I could come on and help you as your corporate liaison and your local PR lead. And that's where we are.
So for someone who wants to enjoy the Bentonville Film Festival, tell us about how, and then if someone wants to engage, and we've got...
Well, if they want to engage, you guys, they could always reach out to me. You'll have my information. But if they want to enjoy, our 10th anniversary is next year.
That's crazy.
It's crazy that it's been 10
really
years.
Is. Wow.
And like, we're really, like, our theme is #TurnItUp. Like, we're really going to take over downtown Bentonville. And with the partnership of, obviously Walmart and Coca-Cola, we're going to have more films, more music. We did a few things that were pretty interesting this year. We had a marketplace to highlight women and Black-owned businesses that took off. So we're going to have even more and open it up to more people. Awesome. And then we also did this vendor village where we had a partnership with a lot of the chefs from Food Network come in, and all the food was free.
Okay.
So it became this family environment. So the other thing that I love about it is if you don't have a lot of money, but let's say you're a family of 4, all you have to do is get in your car, come into downtown Bentonville, and you can eat food for free. You can watch a movie for free. So there's so many things that you could do where you don't necessarily have to have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so it comes back to our job is to provide access.
I love that so much. Because, talking about bringing people together and then putting money directly to, we're going to make it free and bring people together.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, between the Walton Foundation, like the Momentary, a lot of that is in-kind donations. And so people can come out, and even if you have $20, you possibly could watch movies, all day. So if you're a lover of movies, you're a lover of film. And so now my job also is to, every single person that comes into Bentonville, if they're coming from Los Angeles, from New York, from wherever they're coming, when they step off that plane or if they drive, they will be welcome. Right? And so it's all about how can we welcome you and show you what we're about so that you never want to leave.
Yeah.
And that you want to come back and reinvest it into Northwest Arkansas. And so that's kind of how you continue. That's how this cycle works.
Yeah. And the voices start to feed off of each other.
Yep.
and becomes an organic sharing.
And it become this groundbreaking thing that happens. And then we can take the Bentonville Film Festival from a regional festival to a national festival. So that's kind of the goal.
Awesome.
I love that.
So what's coming up that you're most excited about, whether it's with Dave and Jenny or another project? What?
We have so much coming up. Dave and Jenny, so Fix It or Fabulous, will premiere on November the 7th. So they moved that up.
Okay.
In addition to that, we will start on the 13th on a national book tour for Jenny. Her new book is coming out called House Plus Love Equals Home. So if you think about gravitating, being around the table, so that'll be important. We have another TV show that we're filming in Tuscany, in Italy, that we should be done filming that at the end of December. So that's great. And then we're working on a 10th anniversary of the Bentonville Film Festival. But one of the other things that we did this week and last week was we're working with where it's no longer CD&I, from Chief Diversity and Inclusion, it's belonging.
Yeah.
So we're working with Denise Molloy and her team to bring content throughout the year to Walmart and to Northwest Arkansas. So this past Tuesday at Sam's Club, we actually premiered A Great Divide, which is a movie starring Ken Jeong and Jasa Park. It was our feature film for the Bentonville Film Festival, and it was talking about Asian hate and how Asian Americans are portrayed in America, specifically, after COVID and what they're going through. And every single touch point will be focusing on Hispanic Heritage Month, which started yesterday with John Leguizamo. So that will be next month. And then we'll go into Black History Month, International Women's Day, and we'll have a run-up before we get to June.
Awesome.
Belonging. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot because it covers so many things.
Yeah. So you just never
everybody
know.
needs to belong.
You start in retail. And, And
The momentary was ahead of the game.
yeah. So that's a little bit of what I'm doing.
That's awesome. That is exciting. So time for the lightning round.
I think we can get to lightning round. But before we go there, your experiences both at Macy's and Walmart in retail, this is the retail journey. I think what's so cool is talking through how the human aspect of being open and even in retail being open, those things come together, retail or business otherwise. I'd love to hear your sort of closing thoughts on how does your experience, what you know today, like what advice would you give to yourself coming out of college, stepping into retail?
That's good.
Knowing what you know now.
Well, I think if you think about the retail landscape today, it's substantially different than, when I stepped out of college, right? It was very like brick and mortar. It was all about what was happening in the store. I think the exciting thing about retail is you never know where it's going to come from right now, right? Between e-commerce, between what's happening. I think what I didn't know then, what I know now, and what I would say to every new person who wants to get into retail is to be open and be okay with challenging yourself and give yourself grace because you're going to fail. Right. And then, and then once you fail, most people don't necessarily judge you on how you got there. Right.
Right.
But they judge you on how you react to something.
Right.
And so, be open, be willing to take on something that you've never done. If you fail, give yourself grace, and it's how you react to it. What did you learn? How can you be better? And how do you just, and lastly, the other thing that I always say to my team, no matter what, always have fun.
Yeah.
Right. If you're not having fun, then I hate to tell you this, you need to go find something else to do.
Yeah.
Because life's too short.
Yeah.
And it's not like sometimes we think it's a surgical procedure, but it's not.
Yeah.
And so those would be the things that I would say to myself.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'd like to start the lightning round with your biggest fail in retail.
Oh my God. I've had quite a few. But there was this one that we did where we were very excited about it. So back in the day, licensing is huge. And I went to the home show and I found these little pillows that were the size of a square. right? And
Okay.
they were
Yeah.
like $3. And we put all type of licenses around them. We're like, you can throw them, you can do that. And Scott McCall, who was always like one of my
Yes.
biggest cheerleaders, he was like, you got to do it up. You got to make it big.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, we're going to buy like 500,000. And he was like, 500,000? What are you talking about? I want millions. And I was like, okay, we can do millions. Oh my gosh. I think we had like a 2% sell through
Oh, man.
like
Oh,
the
you
first
min-pied
week.
those things.
And then I was like, no.
2%.
You know how you wake up and you're like, is this a joke?
Guys,
This
the
is a
data's
joke.
broken.
So then we
Yeah.
were like, okay. So then a month went by and we were like at 10%. And I was like, I would break
Ouch.
out in hives because I was like, this is where I get fired.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to get fired.
She gone.
Yeah. And so I went into Scott McCall and he was like, yeah, that was bad. And I was like, oh my God, that was bad. I was like, you're not upset? He was like, if I had a penny or $1 for every bad item I
No
bought.
doubt.
And
Right.
he was like, I would have a lot of money. And I was like, don't you have a lot of money? And he was like, well, you know what I mean.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be able to fail. Like,
You gotta be
just
able to
gotta
fail.
go for it.
Yeah.
I've checked a UPC before to make sure it was working. And sure enough, it was. That wasn't why it wasn't
That wasn't why
registering.
it wasn't
People just
registering.
weren't buying it.
They just
Okay.
didn't like it. You
Great.
were like,
Cool.
surely you were like, they have not put it out.
Yeah.
I am going to drive to every single
Yeah.
store locally.
Yeah.
And then you see it and you're like, oh, they just
No,
don't
it's
want
there.
it.
No.
It's just bad. It's just
So,
bad.
so the flip side of that, what's the thing in retail that you're most proud of, or that you enjoyed the most, had the most fun with?
I think I could say building a brand, but I think I would say, and I know it sounds cheesy, but I think it was the people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think the other thing that I think I enjoyed was with Walmart, I think I went to 28 countries. And so I always tell people, like, I'm a better person. I'm a better human. Because when you travel around the world and you understand that the life that you think is so hard,
Yeah.
our lives are not hard. And so you get a quick reality check and it puts it into perspective. And so I would think that the two things would be obviously, a lot of the people that I met that I've got to mentor, the people who have mentored me, but the places that I've been around the world. Like I can go through my passport and, I may not want to go there again,
Right.
ever. There's some places, but I went. And everywhere I went, Walmart or the people who were there made sure that we were taken care of.
That's great. What's your favorite sports team?
Tough one, huh?
I live and breathe through the Los Angeles Dodgers. I mean, I know this sounds dramatic, but sometimes I was like, they are why I exist. But I'm like obsessed and every single person knows. And so I am so excited that luckily it was this week because I was nervous when you were like,
Oh,
hey, because I'm leaving for for LA and I'll just go back and forth and hopefully they'll go to the World Series.
Yeah.
And then I'll just be with them wherever they go. We're like those people that they say, like Dodger fans, we will go wherever we need to go to get our team over the hump.
You're going the distance.
Go in the distance.
This is the year.
This is the year. I mean, it's going to be different than 2020 because, I was there in Texas when they did it. But we're going to get it. This is going to be the year.
That's great. It's been so much fun talking to you. Appreciate you coming out today.
Oh, no, my God. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Very grateful. If one person understands it and it helps one person, then that makes my life and my job so much easier.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you all for joining us on the Retail Journey. You can find our podcast on our website at highimpactanalytics.com and on any of the podcast streaming platforms. We're here to go on the retail journey with you, both the human side, being personal and being the people that we are as individuals, and also with you in CPG land, figuring out how to make things work,
That's right.
figuring out what customers are actually looking for.
Thank you so much.